Did you know that experts agree that you should evaluate your website every 2 to 3 years? Because the online landscape is changing so quickly, this gives you the opportunity to identify what's working and opportunities for improvement. But what does evaluate really mean? That's what we're covering in this video. Hi, I'm Beth Livingston with Triad Web Advisors, and welcome to Honest Website Reviews, where we help you make sure your website's working for you and not against you. So let's get into it. So if you want your website to be successful as a marketing tool and also to be compliant with all current legal regulations, these are the 7 things that you need to consider. These are the 7 key elements: user experience, conversion optimization, legal compliance, mobile responsiveness, your content, SEO and visibility, and performance and security. Now we're going to cover each one of these, and we're going to talk about why it's important, and then we're going to talk about common mistakes that people make. All right, the first one is user experience. As a definition, user experience and design is a strategic process of enhancing the visual elements, usability, and accessibility of a page to ensure it is intuitive to use across all devices. Now, why this is important is because it determines how users interact with your site. Because good user experience makes your customers stay on your site longer, they're going to click more things, they're going to be much more likely to convert into a customer. So user experience is really the foundation for building the trust and credibility with your audience, and there are certain technical ways to make sure that this happens. The most common mistake that we see is very cluttered navigation, confusing site structure that makes information harder to find. In truth, when the user lands on your website, within 3 seconds, they need to know, do you have what I want and how do I get it? And if you ignore accessibility standards, which is the practice of designing your site so that those that are diminished in sight or hearing can also find what they're looking for. The next one is mobile responsiveness. Now, mobile optimization is when we make sure that the site, the way it's designed, that it will scale back and forth. We've all been on those sites where you have to pinch up or pinch down and you have to scroll to the left and scroll to the right because the site is not mobile responsive. And most people will not tolerate that anymore. I mean, the truth is mobile traffic accounts for almost, actually a little more than half of all web traffic. So if your site's not performing correctly on mobile, you're going to lose customers. So the most common mistakes we see are using fixed width designs that don't scale on different screen sizes. And then if you don't test on actual mobile devices, you can miss issues which touch targets that are too small or placed too close together. And at Triad Web Advisors, we actually have a tool that will do this on most all mobile devices so we can determine if your site is responsive or not. And the next one is content and copy. Not too long ago, Google released the helpful content update to their algorithm. And what they're doing now is that they are making sure that they are ranking sites higher that consistently post helpful content. And that's why it matters, especially if you want to dominate a crowded market. Your content needs to be well written, it needs to be formatted, it needs to be SEO optimized, and it needs to be focused on your ideal target audience. Content is what communicates what you're trying to say to your customers. It builds connections with the customers. So quality content answers questions that they're asking, it solves their problems, and it guides them towards the ultimate conversion that you want them to make to become customers. Now, here's the biggest mistake that people make about their website. Focusing on features rather than benefits, failing to explain how your product or service is going to satisfy what the customer is looking for. The other mistake is writing for search engines instead of writing for the humans that are actually visiting your website. So if you're creating keyword-heavy content that doesn't really engage with your readers or build trust, then that's not quality content. The fourth one is SEO and online visibility, and this is where a lot of people focus their time and their efforts, and it's changing every day with artificial intelligence. Search engine optimization is what determines how potential customers can find you online. When you use really good SEO practices, your site's going to rank higher in the search results, and it's going to drive more organic traffic without having to spend money on advertising. It gives you a competitive edge. It helps you to acquire more customers, and it gives you the search engine presence that you need. And the common mistakes that we see is focusing on outdated keyword stuffing tactics. Remember in the olden days, you would go and you would see this mind map or whatever on the side with all of these different keywords in it. And that used to work because it was more mechanical, but Google has people involved now who judge these kinds of things, and they will penalize you for using things like keyword stuffing. It needs to be relevant content that actually answers users' queries. And if you neglect the technical SEO elements like site speed, structured data, mobile optimization, we're going to cover all of those things. Almost everything in this list is also related to search engine optimization. Conversion optimization. Now, this is usually the primary reason for your website, is because you want to take potential customers and turn them into actually paying customers. And so conversion rate optimization, CRO, is the systematic process of increasing the percentage of website visitors who take a desired action. Whether that's filling out a form, becoming a customer, booking a call, whatever the call to action is, that's what you're trying to get your customers to do. So this is important because this is what impacts your bottom line, because it's going to improve the percentage of visitors who actually take the desired action. So even small improvements in conversion rates can dramatically increase your revenue, even without requiring additional traffic. And the biggest mistakes we see people make is not having a call to action at all, or it's weak, or it's unclear, it doesn't stand out, it doesn't communicate value, it leaves customers uncertain about what they're supposed to do next. The other thing is a complicated checkout form, or with too many steps or too many fields. That's called friction. And when customers encounter friction, they will often just abandon the cart before they even finish, or just leave your website and go somewhere else to look for what they want. Performance and security. All right, these are technical things that really do have an impact on whether your site is working for you as a marketing tool, because it has a direct impact on your ranking with Google and other search engines. But what performance and security does is it builds trust with your customers because they know that your site is secure. If your site is loading slowly, customers always see that as unprofessional. They're used to sites that load in a matter of 2 to 3 seconds, and if yours takes longer than that, it's going to be a problem. When your site is easy to use and fast, it's going to increase your visitor experience and conversion rates just by the general nature of it. Some of the common mistakes is using unoptimized images and videos, because those truly slow your site down. So if you are building your own site and you don't have an image optimization tool, then your site is over time going to slow down tremendously. And then we all know that if your site takes too long to load, people will go elsewhere. And then if you don't install regular security updates and patches, you're going to have vulnerabilities in your website. And depending on where you're hosting, that can really have a huge damaging impact on your website's performance. And the last one is legal compliance. Now, depending on where your website is and who you actually serve with your website, there are a number of legal regulations that you need to comply with, or one of those serial litigators who goes out and looks for people who don't know any better and then tries to take the legal route to bilk them out of money. That's why this is so important. You're going to protect your business, you're going to meet international and national requirements, and you can implement proper policies and disclosures so that you are covering yourself in case anybody wants to question whether your site is compliant with legal regulations or not. The biggest mistakes we see are sites that don't have a privacy policy at all. They have a boilerplate page that doesn't really address the privacy regulations across the United States or across international borders. The other mistake we see is using generic terms and conditions that aren't really tailored to your specific business operations and industry regulations. And that's very important, because the terms and conditions part of legal compliance is not so much legal compliance with anyone else. It's to make sure that you have spelled out everything that are the terms and conditions of your website so that nobody can bring legal action against you for those things that you've spelled out there. So I know this is a big list, and it's a lot of things to consider. And in the future videos in this series, we're going to break these down individually and cover these in much greater detail. But here's the checklist. Before you launch your website, before you redesign a website, these are the things you need to consider. User experience, intuitive navigation and clear information architecture that guides your visitors naturally. Mobile responsiveness, so that it functions across all devices and screen sizes. Quality content, compelling error-free copy that speaks directly to your audience's needs and has SEO elements, but it's not focused on SEO. Then you've got SEO optimization, which is where we're going to use those strategic keywords and key phrases that your customers are looking for and employ technical elements that are going to boost your visibility on the search engines. Conversion optimization, that's a big one. That's what your website's all about anyway, is taking those potential customers and turning them into customers. Performance and security, you need a fast loading website and you need it to be totally secure so that your customers are comfortable using your site and not concerned about any kind of security breaches or that you're not collecting personal information the wrong way. And then legal compliance, where you're employing proper policies and practices that protect your business and also build trust with your clients. So there you have it. Those are the 7 elements that you need to consider when you're building a website or if you're redesigning a website. Now, if you need some help with this, at Triad Web Advisors, we do offer a full website assessment, and that will allow you to stop guessing. Or you can also download our free DIY website assessment checklist, and the links for those are on the page right below this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some benefit from this. Be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss future videos, especially those where we are looking at specific websites and what they've done right and what they've done wrong. Honest website reviews, where we help you determine if your site is working for you or working against you. Thanks, guys.